We are absolutely delighted, and I just have a couple of quick things to say. I'd like to point out and congratulate my colleague Michael Erickson, just back from a residency, playwriting residence at Coe College in Iowa. I see him in the audience today, and glad he's here. My colleague Murray Farish, who as of this fall will be the overnight sensation of a full-time assistant professor in our English department. Congratulations to you. And also, with all kinds of thanks to Kathleen Finneran for helping us anchor so much of the nonfiction that we're able to do in our undergraduate program, and for helping us establish a continuity of that, as in the fall, Deborah Taffa, a recent graduate this spring from the University of Iowa's nonfiction program with John Tagaka, will be commandeering our nonfiction classes. We're delighted about that too. Without further ado, I give you the wonderful Kathleen Finneran.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me well enough back there? Maybe I should just selfishly take a moment to say how great it's been to be back here for a year. And I wish it could be longer. The world is such as it is. But it's been a real pleasure, and I've enjoyed being able to come back and re-experience all of our really fine students, as well as my friends on the faculty. But I'm here to introduce Amy Leach, who is one of the most exciting nonfiction writers writing nonfiction today, I believe. Here is Amy Leach's book, Things That Are. See it? Things That Are. It's a book you must have. I don't think you're supposed to do shameless plugs as part of an introduction, but it's a book that if you are interested in language and nonfiction and the way they can work together, it's a book you don't want to miss. Things That Are. Amy Leach's book, Things That Are, is a thing that is. In describing the thing that is Amy Leach's book, I cannot do better than Murray Farish has done in the text he composed for the flyer announcing her reading here today. He writes, Leach blends the wondrous astonishment of old school natural history with the linguistic pressure and verve of the lyric essay. Here is a very incomplete list of the things that are in Amy Leach's book, Things That Are. Beavers, salmon, music, goats, penguins, ostriches, frogs, warblers, peas, pandas, turtles, lizards, lilies, cornflowers, lotuses, hippos, water lettuce, whirligig beetles, trees, sea cucumbers, jellyfish, moths, caterpillars, emergency warning sirens, stars, moons, oracles, and moldy warps, bean kings, sagittaries, toxodons, dragon gaggers, argle bargles, wimwams, fireflakes, and the planet Huff and Puff. And there are words and words and words and words, so beautifully used, and more words. Here is an example of the way that things are in Amy Leach's book, Things That Are. How the things that are encountered through our guide. This happens to be about jellyfish. I could turn to any number of the things that are in Things That Are and do the same for them. What happens to jellyfish out of water is similar to what happens to bridesmaids' hairdos in water. Jellyfish in the water look like pink and green flower hats and bright dripping egg yolks and manes of lions. But out on the beach sand, they look like melting plastic bags. However, plastic bags can also be transformed by their location. In the water, they become handsome, like the moon, so that sea turtles mistake them for moon jellyfish and eat them. Eating plastic bags instead of jellyfish saves the turtle's eyes from swelling shut on account of tentacle sting. But plastic causes terrible eaters' indigestion and generally kills the mistaken turtles. Sometimes, while moon jellyfish are being impersonated by plastic bags, they themselves go to Japan to be in salads. Jellyfish might seem like they would taste eerie, but in fact, they taste like blue rubber bands. Here is something incompletely quoted that Amy Leach has written about people's minds that one suspects may be true of her own mind. Maybe some people's minds are like libraries. The book feels to me encyclopedic in its attention to nature and the minutiae of nature and the metaphorical possibility of nature. Here is something I've come to think about Amy Leach. At an early age, the age I'll call the age of enchantment, she not only encountered the enchantment of the world, but entered it. She not only encountered the enchantment of language, but entered language. And unlike many of us, who may have also encountered these enchantments, who may have also even entered them, she escaped the forced evacuation brought on by agents of the unenchanted, and by some great agreement to continually inquire and conspire and delight us, she was allowed to live enchantedly among all the many things that are. And aren't we lucky for that? Here is Amy Leach.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that extraordinarily beautiful introduction, which made me very happy. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Murray for organizing this visit. Thank you and for accommodating my tiny little roadie who's upstairs. I brought my 4-month-old along. It's been a good visit, and thank you all for being here. So some of the things that that I'm going to read about are caterpillars, Noah's Ark, the moon, pandas, and a comforter. So this first one is called, You Are Going to Fly. Once, a friend and I followed a moth that trudged across a whole grocery store parking lot. It was nighttime, not really a safe time for trudging moths. I said to it, Moth, why don't you fly? Why are you wasting your wings? But my friend, much better than me allowing winged things to walk, said, maybe it missed being a caterpillar. So we decided it's a good thing that the caterpillar stage comes before the moth stage instead of the other way around, because moths, if they like, can take long, nostalgic walks across parking lots, while caterpillars could never indulge in long, nostalgic flights to Mexico. Caterpillar, you are going to fly, everyone says to caterpillars. You will be transformed. People think of them as proto-moths and proto-butterflies, and they're impatient for them to convert into their more extraordinary selves. Which is understandable, of course, when that which is like a plodding lozenge turns into that which is like an angel. Everything that belongs to the lozenge's time seems mere preliminary. But think of the nervousness for the lozenge. What sort of disposition could bear the pressure of such a drastic and imminent exaltation? Caterpillars nonetheless remain calm, eating their tobacco and milkweed, enviably imperturbable in the face of a brilliant future. But they are perturbable, if not by the future, then by elements of the present, for they are little and plush-soft, crushable, eatable, drownable, freezable. A few have spines like the hickory horned devil, or intimidating tufts like the dagger moth. A few have antifreeze to keep their blood from turning to icy slush, but most do not. Most can only inch away from danger, antifreeze and intimidating tufts notwithstanding. Any danger that cannot overtake a caterpillar is no danger at all, a trifle. Because they cannot run, for caterpillars have only 6 real legs. The rest are fake, mere stumps to keep their hind parts from getting scuffed. Caterpillars have to do other things when threatened. Some make themselves unpleasant. Black-etched prominent caterpillars send out 2 foul-smelling pink tentacles from their back end and wave them around. Monarch caterpillars are foul-tasting. Entomologists use that word foul often when referring to the flavor of a caterpillar. They are rarely more specific than foul or tasty. I expect that's because they are leaving the assessment up to birds, and birds have a very binary approach. The azalea caterpillar, a black and white plaid caterpillar with a cherry red head and legs, when disturbed, arches up its head and thrusts it back like a hairpin and arches its tail up like an S. To be honest, it looks more electrocuted than scary when it does this. The yellow-necked caterpillar twists itself into the same shape, except the yellow neck vibrates as well, which really brings electric trauma to mind. Many caterpillars defend themselves not by striking fear in the hearts of their predators, but rather indifference. The large maple spanworm looks like a twig. The viceroy caterpillar looks like a bird dropping. This isn't as exciting as looking like an anaconda. But when you're very small and wingless, one of your main goals in life is to not be exciting. And speaking of unexciting, I think it's safe to say that woolly bears have one of the least advanced defense mechanisms among insects, although theirs is the reaction with which I most strongly identify. When distressed, the woolly bear rolls up into a ball. I recently saw the last 5 minutes of a reality show where lots of women were vying for one man. The women behaving like witchetty grubs, frantically trying to bury each other in a bucket o' bait, or spiders stinging each other's heads, eating each other's legs. Not having seen the beginning, not knowing the premise of the show, I surmise that some amount of money must be in store for the winning woman. For what other incentive could induce them to participate? Unless they were coerced, but it can't be legal, I thought to myself, to detain so many women and force them to act like insects. However, when they showed one of the youngest ones filmed burbling after the big introduction banquet, I was nonplussed. Not a mercenary at all. She seemed genuinely hoping to fall in love. She said, "The moment our eyes met, I knew there was something special between us. And I felt butterflies in my stomach like I haven't in so long." And she declared, "I live for butterflies." I'm guessing that the sweet Mooney girl later regretted her announcement, which must have induced thousands of entomologists the world over to write her letters. "Dear Tiffy, we do too. We live for butterflies too." Entomologists are notoriously excitable and notoriously ingenuous when it comes to reality shows. But it is possible that a more guarded entomologist, maybe from the Ukraine, happened to walk into his teenager's room just as this particular interview was airing and directly posted a sensible letter the next morning to "Dear Miss Brown, after witnessing your show on television last evening, during which you made the emotional statement regarding butterflies, I feel compelled to write to you and inquire, are you not aware that most butterflies, after they've acquired wings, only live for 2 weeks or less? That they spend months or even years as eggs and caterpillars and pupae? This is why you haven't felt that fluttery feeling in such a long time, Miss Brown. The life cycle of the butterfly is protracted. If you really do live for butterflies, as you say, and provide your thoracic cavity as a butterfly garden, you must be patient and remember that you are living for their eggs as well, and for caterpillars, which require months' worth of nourishment, and for pupae, which can wait for years before they emerge as butterflies, to give you a few days of fluttery feeling and then die or migrate. But with all due respect, Miss Brown, I suspect that you do not live for butterflies at all, but for the fluttery feeling they offer. If this is indeed the case, may I suggest that you let the butterflies out and fetch some Mexican jumping beans instead. Regards, Dr. Osapi Whiskey. But in the end, whether people know how small a portion of time is given to the butterfly, how large a portion to the caterpillar, does not matter. But they can never infect the caterpillar with their anxious urges to become a small apple green caterpillar who climbs a toad flax plant, who somehow loses a foothold while walking across a stem to get to a leaf, slips, and is hanging on by only 2 crochet hook feet, The wind swinging it back and forth over the creek is not thinking, "Alack! I shall fall into the icy water. I shall be swallowed by a fish. I will never now wrap myself in silk and wake up with powdery, iridescent blue and green wings, fly away with them to fields of cornflower and mate and feed on the tears of wild buffalo. My life, my eating, my climbing, it has all been meaningless." Rather, it thinks, "I'm swinging, I'm swinging, I'm swinging." Thank you. This piece is called Memorandum to the Animals, and it begins with a text from Genesis 6:19, which says, "And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee." Unfortunately, animals, we're not going to be able to bring all of you with us this time. Last time, there were 8 humans on board and at least 2 of each of you. But that was a sentimental era, and God was a sentimental fellow, like the old pack right up the road who won't give up any of his whim-whams. Bringing 2 of every sort of creature onto the ark meant bringing all 1,700 species of scorpions, all the blotchy toads and testy wasps, and malevolent snakes and countless other creatures as unnecessary as insanity. This time around, we are in charge, producing our own cataclysm, designing our own boat, making our own guest list, which does not include every living thing. That first ancient boat we have retrospectively christened the Fantasy. Today, we sail in a boat called Reality. Realistically, logistically, it would be too complex to try and save every single kind of you multitudinous, miscellaneous creatures. Dormitory assignments would be a nightmare because we don't know who might eat whom or who might die of social stress. We'd have to go nectar collecting beforehand for sustenance for the sugar birds and gather angelica blossoms for the hoverflies. And if little blue poison frogs were going to maintain their poison, we'd have to bring along extra mites for them to ingest and special leaf litter for the mites to ingest. Anyway, we need the space for our works and wonders. Many of you are being superannuated because we must give priority to our machinery, our televisions and computers, airplanes, trucks, refrigerators, combination microwave convection ovens with auto time zone adjusters. We will still bring a few of you with us, especially those of you with rumps and ribs. Please refer to the Keep Alive list. But we're not going to waste time hallooing for the bush babies, waiting for the mayflies to drift in and the kiwis to materialize. And we are certainly not going to stand around until the tortoises figure out what's going on. If you're concerned about the devastation of your genetic type and you don't see your name on the Keep Alive list, you might think about clumping some vegetation together into rafts on which to rescue yourselves. You animals, slugs, bats, who can't assemble your own rafts, or whose spindly legs, dromedaries, moose, are liable to poke through a grassy vessel, or who are graminivorous and oblivious, sheep, and who would nibble through the rescue raft, know that the extinction of your type is not necessarily the extinction of your glory. You can live on in the imagination, like the angels. Although, like the angels, you are likely to be simplified. To properly live on in the imagination, you should have someone who really knows you, who knows the pitch of your buzz, the rufous hue of your throat, your fondness for comfrey, who's watched 2 of you golden frogs separated by a loudly gushing stream, waving your hands in semaphore fashion. As the Holocene is winding down, don't be foolish like the okapis, who use their acute hearing to detect and avoid human beings. They have sabotaged their chance to survive in anyone's mind. But even the most knowledgeable imaginer is a fallible vessel. Like an iceberg, liable to get carried away, to melt, to be at bottom, very, very blue. Don't you know, animals? Nothing lasts forever. The Holocene was the age of miscellany, the age of pandemonium, the age of which Noah's Ark was a microcosm. Of 30 million passengers, 8 were human. It was a noisy, dirty, dangerous, eccentric, anarchic, inefficient, rowdy ride. The co-passengers knocked us over a lot, and sometimes we fell over laughing. But now we're proceeding into the age of efficiency. the age of sanity, the age of refinement. We salute you, animals, as we salute the unruly Holocene, but the future belongs to us. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from an essay about the moon titled Sail On, My Little Honeybee. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Let us now reflect upon the moon, for the moon has long reflected upon us. To get an idea of the relationship between the earth and the moon and the sun, find two friends and have the self-conscious one with lots of atmosphere be the earth, and the coercive one be the sun. And you be the moon if you are periodically luminous and sometimes unobservable, and your inner life has petered out. Then find a large field and take 3 steps from the earth and have the sun go a quarter mile away. For an idea of how long your light takes to reach earth, sing one line from a song, such as, "Sail on, my little honeybee," and that's how long moonlight takes. The earth can sing the same line back to you to represent earthlight. "Sail on, my little honeybee." As for the sun, he should sing as lustily as sunlight. Have him discharge the song, "I gave her cakes and I gave her ale," which is 8 minutes long, which is how long sunlight takes to reach the earth. Also, the earth may sing to the sun and the sun to the moon and the moon to the sun, songs of representative length. Now, keep singing, and everybody spin, and the smaller 2 of you orbit the next largest rotundity. Now, as you, the moon, go around the earth, do not circle perfectly as if you were a mill horse or an idea. You are not an idea. You make the earth's heavy blue waters heave up and down. Circle asymmetrically then, like a small co-planet. Truly, you and the earth both orbit the center of your combined mass, called the barycenter. Of course, if you and the earth were equal in bulk, the barycenter would lie exactly between you. You and the earth would pass your lives in social equilibrium like the rooster and the pig on the carousel. However, as the earth is 81 times more massive than the moon, the barycenter is 81 times closer to the earth, thus the barycenter is inside the earth though not at its center. This means that the earth orbits a point inside itself. The earth is a self-revolver nodding slightly to the swooping moon. Now, the earth does not look 81 times as massive as the moon. In fact, it's just 4 times as wide. To address this perceptual difficulty, we will interrupt our lunar reenactment and consult philosophy. Let us refer to our index of philosophies and select one known as interiorism, which says that truth is to be known by introspection. To discover why the earth acts so central and the moon so obsequious, let us not measure yards but consider inward differences. The earth is not gigantic and the moon is not slight, but the earth has a core, while the moon does not. Or rather, if the moon has a core, it is undetectably small and inert, like a frozen mouse. How do we know that the moon has a mousy core? Whoever really has been a lunar interiorist? Here we shall invent a philosophy and call it imaginative exteriorism, wherein by looking at the exterior we imagine the interior, for the face often tattles on the heart. And an empty surface may bespeak an empty center, although this is not true of alligator eggs. The moon has a stony face, while the earth's face is a slap-happy burlesque, screaming flocks of peacocks here and cloudbursts there, and spriggy merriment everywhere. Such an exhibition is possible only if inside itself the earth has a core whose nickel density enables the planet not only to sport a moon, but also to hold on to tiny, flighty molecules. For these bouncing, shimming molecules are Earth's genius, and they are harder to keep than moons. Cloudland has a core of adamant. On behalf of those who feel vacant and uninhabited, to whom nothing occurs, who look up day and night from chalky dust into unrefracted blackness, who watch their plush, blue-headed neighbors yielding splashy gullies and snow devils, and excitable vespiaries and backsliding pinnipeds, and heady cauliflowers, and turtle centuplets, and rosy squirrel fish swarming through rapture reefs. On behalf of unprofitable individuals everywhere, is the moon ordained to always be a shabby waste of rubbled regolith, Could it never scrabble together a genius like the Earth's? What about molecule trustees like the sun? The solar wind blasts a plasma of particles throughout the solar system. Couldn't some of these accrue upon the moon? For not all atoms wiggle away. Xenon, for example, is heavy and slow. It would make a nicely non-combustible atmosphere of glowing lavender hue, and it would make sound possible, although slow, so everyone's voice would drop several octaves, and everyone would sound like walruses. Xenon is also an anesthetic, so inhabitants would be blithe, and they would be amenable to dentistry. But the wind that bringeth the elements taketh them away. The atmosphere on the moon is thinner than the thinnest vacuum we can contrive. Halos cannot be affixed to the head with pins and clips. Maragnon forests hosting spine-tailed birds and purple-back sunbeams and velvet-fronted euphonias and long-tailed weasels cannot be administered from without. Glory cannot be administered from without. Glory will only coalesce on a body wherein throbs a fiery, molten, mad stallion heart so dreadfully dense, so inescapably attractive that it matters little the circumference of the frame. Thank you. I'm going to read a few entries from my glossary. I use some unusual words in my book, and my editor asked me to write some unusual definitions of unusual words. Okay. So, vasty, as differentiated from vast, has approximately the same meaning as biggie, hugey, and gigantic-y. Don't let anyone tell you those are not words. All words are words. Smitheries and smelteries. First, the smelter smelts the iron from the ore, then sends it over to the smithy, who smiths it into an automobile. After that, the automobile is sent to the waxery, where it is waxed, and from there it goes to the rustery, where it rusts. Dr. Osipiweskiwi, definitely somebody with the pedagogic itch. You have to be careful what you say around pedagogues, unless you want everything explained to you. The age of efficiency, the age of sanity, the age of refinement. Our inventions have long been ahead of us in terms of efficiency and sanity, productivity and predictability. Oh, how we've wished we could be man-made too. What has been keeping us back, keeping us so messy? It's the animal impediment, within and without. Eliminating this impediment, we will surely be catching up with our machines, resembling them more and more impeccably. Luncheon ladies. As no samurai should ever go out without his top knot, no lady should ever go out without her zoo pass. Who knows when she might be invited to a spontaneous luncheon at the zoo cafe to celebrate the acquisition of a Malaysian babirusa. The ingenious gentleman Don Quixote. Don Quixote read too much and he went mad, for literature magnifies the madness that is humanity. If you read too much and you exacerbate your humanity, even a moth will be able to discern your mutability. Reconstellate. What stars and people generally do in response to the latest findings. They rearrange themselves. Hedgehogs, though, are examples of non-reconstellators. They stand on their own 4 feet in the face of the headiest trends. Ladle. The long tail of the Great Bear is also the handle of the Big Dipper, which is an asterism. Asterisms are less distinguished than constellations. They are lower down in the hierarchy of starry patterns. Any goose can make up an asterism. Constellations are superior to asterisms, and asterisms are superior to asterisks. Leguminous exoplanet. Leguminous means basically beanie. Now, if we're going to posit alien beings in outer space, then please let us posit alien beings for them to plant and eat. Okay, last one. The wild what? Anything unknown. For example, an unborn baby. One day she may be a wild spelunker or a wild Lutheran. But for now, she's a wild what? All right. I'm going to read a piece about panda bears. This is called Radical Bears in the Forest Delicious. There once was a king of Babylon who was too proud, so he was given the mind of an animal and put out to pasture. For 7 years he roamed the fields on all fours and munched on grass, after which period he was allowed to return to his palace, his rich robes of purple, his barley beer and skewered locusts, and royal hairdresser who gave him back his dignified ringlets. Along with an animal's mind, he'd been given the animal's hairstylist. It is not specified which animal's mind Nebuchadnezzar received, but from his glad return to civilization and fine cuisine, we can infer that it was not the mind of a panda bear. If he'd had a panda's mind for 7 years, in the end he would have rejected the restitution of his kingdom. He would have somersaulted away to continue leading a free, elusive, unfollowed life. Having followers is an honor pandas dream not of. There is no tragopan so trustworthy, no bush pig so dependable that they would want it tagging along. Pandas even head away from pandas like the stars in the universe, spreading farther and farther apart, except their territory is neither infinite nor expanding, and in order to deliver more panda bears into existence, they can't just scatter into particles at the end. Pandas come together every 2 years or so. Marriage is not always marriage of the mind. Maybe if they'd been given a choice, they would have picked a less conspicuous coat, one to better correspond with their reclusive spirits. Admirers can be secret admirers, and afflictions can be secret afflictions. But pandas cannot be secret pandas. Since they contrast dramatically with green ferns, gray rocks, pink rhododendrons, and their own bellies and ears and legs. They are showy bears, sensationally visible, which might actually be an advantage for a solitary species. The easier to avoid you, my dear. Camouflaged animals are probably always bumping into each other. What does the animal do all day that's not engaged in society? Its duties and pleasures and ferments. There may be some wedging in trees, some gazing into the mist, some fiddle-faddle. Sometimes the panda breaks an icicle off a branch and tosses it into the air over and over till it melts. Sometimes, trotting pigeon-toed across a hillside, he trips and then he rolls because he's round. Having enjoyed that, he may climb back up and roll back down. He might pick wild irises or crocuses and recline among the ferns to eat them, or lounge underneath a weeping willow, munching on the little leaflets that are dangling into his mouth. But mostly what pandas do with their time is eat bamboo. Bamboo, that sturdy wooden grass, makes up to 99% of their diet, and they eat it for up to 14 hours a day. They have to consume it constantly since they're only assimilating about 20%. Their penitential diet is a mystery. Pandas are like celery saints. Everyone else is convivially dining on stuffed eggs, truffled fingerlings, little pies and oranges, enjoying the tableside crooners, while out behind a bush sits a celery saint with his basket of celery, crunch, crunch, crunch. Eat enough pies and you can put aside the desire for food and pursue something else, like a cowboy. But rare's the romance of the celery extremist. With their carnivorous anatomy and herbivorous behavior, it's like pandas are pledged to an ancient covenant, as if they used to be bon vivants like other bears. Blood and berry juice staining their muzzles, slug-a-beds all winter, till one day they fell into a trance and received a deep message. You are standing, pandas, on the very borders of the eternal world, but you have become charmed with infatuating food. The subtle poison of sensuality courses through your veins. You must disregard custom and the strong clamoring of appetite and passion. It will take at times every particle of willpower which you possess, but give yourselves wholly to a bamboo diet, and guided by firm, unspotted principle, your lives will become pure and noble. And thus was formed that radical sect of bears, the bambooists. Modern days bambooists show a remarkable resistance to temptation. A stream runs by serving up fresh fish, and what does the panda do? Wades across to get to a stiff thicket of bamboo on the opposite side. But willpower might not entirely account for such abstemiousness anymore. Bamboo is not power food, and the bear who eats it is not a power bear. And swiping fish from the river takes energy, as does sleeping all winter. If you're going to sleep for 7 months, you need to eat your hickory nuts, your ungulates, your honey. Bambooists have to stay awake all winter to eat bamboo, incidentally witnessing the saffron sparkles of snow falling from a branch, the cliffs draped with icy fringes, the white snow powdering the green bamboo leaves. Could any dream compare with winter? What does a panda know who studies just a few cloudy mountain miles of the world? From her experience, she must know about fallibility. Icicles melt, flowers fail, intangibly small babies grow tangible and autonomous. And one day when you come back from foraging to collect yours from the tree fork where you left him, he is gone. Mushrooms, moonlight, everything is ephemeral, with one exception. Bamboo. Bamboo never fails. Bamboo is eternal, evergreen. Green in the orange season, green in the white season, green in the green season, poking up sweet little shoots into the spring rain. Blessed is the bear that trusteth in bamboo. And for lucky pandas, it's true. Bamboo never fails. Bamboo can be eternal for 100 years, which is 4 times as eternal as panda bears. But there is in the character of bamboo a devastating defect. Most grasses stagger their dying piece by piece like an orchestra. Though a trombonist goes down, the collective life carries on. The trouble with bamboo is that it crashes all at once. After a century of continuous availability, the entire thicket flowers together, dies together, and like a dead orchestra, it can take 20 years to get back on its feet. At this point, an animal might wise up and become a whateverist. With so many edibles in the world, why consume almost exclusively a miserably nutritious, erratically fallible one? It's not like bamboo is pleasant to eat like beans. Bamboo splinters poke and scratch the swallower all the way down. That old covenant was arbitrary and perverse. Bamboo is a silly staple. Specialism is folly. Consider pragmatists. When the linguine runs out, a pragmatist will eat the centerpiece. And when that is done, he will eat the tablecloth. As pragmatists have no principles, their numbers are myriad. But pandas betrayed by bamboo go looking for bamboo. For there is such a thing as specialized hunger, being hungry for one thing. It is similar to specialized loneliness. Sometimes they don't have to travel far. Pandas eat several kinds of bamboo, and even though arrow bamboo collapses, there might be umbrella bamboo growing nearby. Sometimes they have to go farther afield, and sometimes they travel in pitiful directions. Would you know which way to go to find a hotbed of celery? Until their coats don't fit very well anymore. Vagrancy used to be easier on the animals because there used to be more forest. Even if an expedition wasn't efficient, it was foresty all the way, just as the journey from earth to heaven is milky all the way. But now between patches of forest there are villages and gravel mines, steep cornfields, frightened people waving blankets, mushroomers, other things to avoid. People have tried to help pandas become pragmatists, to see sense, to switch to alternatives during a bamboo strangulation. And in captivity they comply. They eat the yams and bananas and fish set before them. But compliance is not conversion. When they are set free, pandas return to their ruinous fidelity to bamboo, shuffling past opportunity. For on the far side of that hill might be the forest delicious, where they can lie back in the million-column sanctuary, a bamboo cane in each forefoot, crunching on the one and then the other, munching on flappy bundles of leaves. There are fewer than 2,500 free pandas left, and they're all in the same boat, made of bamboo. When it goes down, they go down with it into dark water, and they won't switch to another boat, not for all the tea in China. Pandas have their own wisdom, unaccountable and unamendable, whose roots shoot down deeper than we can penetrate. And if they mind anyone at all, it is someone more elusive than man. Okay, the last piece I'm going to read is called Comfortless. My Aunt Stella's down comforter arrived from Texas finally, but smelling scorched, leaking feathers. A little light bulb in the car door had burned a little hole in it. I've band-aided it up, but the feathers still escape because feathers want to fly. For 53 years, Stella had been fastidious with the comforter, folding it away every morning in its plastic zippered case when all it ever wanted to get was to get a little hole burnt in it. Goodbye, seams, say the feathers. We are going to float. When I am through losing my Aunt Stella's exultant feathers, I am going to fill the antique rose-colored comforter with sand and double band-aid the hole. I will use clean, fine Jamaica sand. Sand will never float away and leave me bereft. Sand will be fun to sleep under. Sand will find the hole when the band-aids pull away one night and spill. I will wake up with handfuls of sand spilling out of my hands. Goodbye, seams, goodbye, hands, cries the sand. I am going to spill. Unkind hole, I will cry. Obstinate comforter, letting all my feathers out, letting all my sand out. How can I depend on you? Must I ever be tending to you, my difficult comforter, ever filling you with something new which only ends up floating away or spilling? Must I live with no certainty, no continuity? I will call you comfortless. In my exasperation, I will run to the store. I will buy many chocolate mints, and I will stuff my comforter with mints. If you're going to have a hole, I will tell it as I resolutely stuff it full, I will turn you into a chocolate mint dispenser. When you release your contents, as you are always doing, I will get a treat. It will be a cunning plan inspired by sheep who also eat their bedding. They will not be quite cunning enough, because chocolate mints, unlike grass, melt and do not hesitate to coat a warm sleeping person with goo. I will wake up as chocolate mint person. I will stumble to the door, unhappily attracting sand and feathers on the way. I will stand on the lawn. I will look up at the stars and bleat, "Stars, I'm having trouble with my comforter. You are so serene. How can I be serene like you?" They will look at each other knowingly, for they have answered this question millions of times. And then they will twinkle back to me. "Person, you will never be like a star. Things for you will always float away and spill and melt. The closest thing to serenity for you is laughing." I will recognize this as true. I will stand there, just another sandy, feathery, chocolate mint person laughing on the lawn.